How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Tes. Well, kind of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends, your friends. The reason why I say kind of is because we actually have a bunch of stuff to do on Daf Nun Ches. But Cheva, let me tell you, today's Daf is awesome. It's just awesome in general, but then there's like a cherry on top. The last chunk of today's daf is the world famous story of the Tanur Shel Achnai with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua and whatever, Rabbi Gamliel. Everybody, it's gewaldig, awesome, world famous story, which we are going to learn together. First time actually like learning it inside. Super excited about it. So let us do that. But first, I'm 1 second. Okay, here we go. Where are we? So, gewaldig. So we're going to start at the Mishnah on Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. Okay, it says the Mishnah. This is not a difficult daf. 1 second, I'm taking off my watch. All right. So just like there's a concept of ona'ah when it comes to business transactions, right, buying and selling. Kach ona'ah bidvarim. There's also being inappropriate when it comes to speech and how you relate to people. Lo yomer lo b'chama chayfetz zeh v'einu rotze likach. You shouldn't say to somebody, to a store owner, oh, how much does this cost? And you actually have no intention of buying it. If he was a Baal Tshuva, a fellow who did Tshuva, don't say to him, oh, remember what you used to do before you did Tshuva. Don't do that. If he's a child of proselytes, don't say, imagine what your ancestors did. The ones who were not proselytes, the ones who were the pre-proselyte types. Shenemar v'ger lo sona v'lo suchatzenu. That a proselyte you shall not. I don't know, how do you translate toneh? Abuse, but it's the same. It's from the same concept of onah. V'lo suchatzenu, and don't pressure him like with like money. I guess pressure him in too forcefully pressurized ways. Says the Gemara, that when the pasuk says that a fellow should not tonu his friend, we're talking about verbal ona'ah. Wait, how do you know it's verbal mammon? Maybe it means like overcharging and undercharging, that whole thing. By the way, Cheve, as I said, this daf is going to be the real test to see if my brain is just permanent mush or it just is sensitive. It's mush sensitive because of the highly intense gemaras we've been doing for like 6 months now already. So maybe it's just become very sensitive, a very, very sensitive brain. But here, this daf is not hard at all. It's extremely enjoyable. So let's see. If my brain is mush by the end of this daf, then we're in trouble. So far, so good. Right? So how do you know that it's talking about onas devarim, verbal onah? Maybe it's talking about the onah that we know and love. A 6th, a 3rd, a 12th, a 24th. Oh, my brain is turning mushy. 1 second, I don't want that. When he says v'chisimkru mimkar la'amisecha ukanum yada misecha, when it talks about v'chisimkru mimkar la'amisecha ukanum yada misecha, and it says what does it say? Lo sonu isha sachiv. Well, then obviously harionas mamun amr. Obviously, that's talking about the financial kind of the transaction kind of ona'ah. Homani makayim lo sonu ish esamito. So what's this other pasuk of lo sonu? Isha samito, but onas devarim, that it's talking about verbal ona'ah haketzad. What's verbal ona'ah? Imay bal tshuva al yomar lo. If he's a bal tshuva, don't say to him, Zechor ma'asecha harishonim. Remember what you used to do before you did tshuva. Imay ben gerim. If he's the son of proselytes, al yomar lo. Don't say to him, Zechor ma'ase avosecha. Remember the actions of your pre-proselytic ancestry. If you have a proselyte who wants to study the Holy Torah, al yomar lo, do not say to him, seriously, a mouth that ate nevela and treifa and bugs and worms and who knows what is now going to study Torah that was from the mouth of the Eibishter? Come on, you crazy? If a person afflictions were coming upon him, or if sickness, disease was coming upon him, or he was bearing his children, do not say to him, like what Eov's friends told him, I don't really know how to translate that, but I know how to translate, I think, maybe the last part, which is, has there ever been somebody who was innocent that got punished like this? No, clearly there's something wrong with you. There's a kink in your soul. Don't, that's not a nice thing to say to somebody who's going through a rough patch. Imayu chamorim mivakshin tvue mimenu. If a donkey driver comes and he says, hey, you know where I can get some tvue, some grain, lo yomar loim, don't say, l'chu etzel ploni shu moicher tvue. Why don't you go to so-and-so, he sells grain. And you know that this person has never actually sold grain before. I'm not sure what the onah is. I imagine the onah is that you're being a shtunk towards this guy. You're telling him to run in circles. Yeah, go buy grain by this person. You know he's not a grain monger. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the onah is that you're yanking the grain this quote unquote grain monger's chain. That now this guy's going to come asking for grain and he doesn't have grain. I don't know. You're definitely being a shmendrik. That's for sure. One second. There's something in my tooth that's driving me nuts. I don't know. Wait, did I get it? Wait, maybe I got it. Alright. Wait, 1 second. Whatever. My sister Buddha, and a person should not be looking at something that's for sale at a time when he doesn't actually have money to buy with it. Now, when it comes to all of these things, right? Something like giving, saying go buy tvua by so and so, and you know that he doesn't actually sell tvua, or like window shopping at some place where you don't actually plan to buy that. These are things that are given over to your heart. Only you know that you don't have good intentions here. And anything that is sort of up to your intention, it says v'yaresa me'elokecha, you must fear your God. Verbal onah is more significantly bad than financial, monetary onah. It says v'yaresa me'elokecha by onas dvarim, and it doesn't say v'yaresa me'elokecha by onas mammon. V'balazo Omer says v'balazo zebegufo v'zebmamono. When you have onas dvarim, so you actually affect the person himself, as opposed to onas mammon is just his money. V'Shmuel bar Nachmani Omar. So the Shmuel bar Nachmani is aniton leishavon, v'zoniton leishavon, that onas mammon you can always get it back, right? You can always return the difference. But onas devarim, how are you going to take it back? The damage has been done. Tani Tana Kamidu of Nachman bar Yitzchak, a teacher of Bryce is taught for Nachman bar Yitzchak, called Amalbim Pnei Chaveru Berabim, somebody who embarrasses the face of his friend in public. Ki'ilu Shofech Dam, it's like he's a murderer. He's a Shofech Dam. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says to the fellow, you're saying good, because you could see the Azil Sum Kavasi Chivra, that that the red is drained out of his face and it becomes all white. So he's like, all of his blood is drained out of him when he gets embarrassed. Amar le Abaye, le Rav Dimi, says Abaye to Rav Dimi, b'may Rava, b'may Zehire, what are they careful about? What are they cautious about in Eretz Yisrael, where I live? Amar le ba'achvure ape, that they are very careful not to embarrass anybody. Because Reb Chanina said, Akol Yarden leGehenim, everyone goes to hell. Chutz mishlosh, except for 3. Akol, Salkadaitich, but everyone goes to hell. Ela kol Yarden leGehenim olim. No, all the people who go to hell return from hell. Chutz mishlosh sheyarden ve'ein olin, except for 3 that go to hell and don't come back. Ve'eluin, and these are them. Habal eshes ish, somebody who has beer with an eshes ish, and somebody who embarrasses the face of his friend in public, or somebody who has a negative nickname for his fellow. But isn't a negative nickname, an embarrassing nickname, basically embarrassment? You know it? It's talking about even if whatever he's used to it, you've been calling him meatball his whole life, and he's used to it already. But holy shnikes, what is that? Is that a mouse trap? I hope there's no mouse in there. That'll be so gross. Whatever, I'd have to get somebody else to take it out. I dealt with a huge spider the other night. It's like a tarantula. It was, oh, dang. It was, not fun. Maybe somebody else could deal with the mouse, but I don't think there's actually a mouse there. I think it's just an old trap. Anyways, where are we? Okay, where are we? It would be better for a person to have beer with a suffix eshes ish, that would even be better, and obviously that's not a good thing to do. We just said it's one of the people who doesn't come out of hell, but even that would be better than embarrassing somebody in public. Minolan, how to know this? Mididarish Rava, from now it's Rava Darshan. Didarish Rava Maidichsiv, what does the pasuk mean of Itzali? That King David says that when I limp, Samchu v'ne'esafu, karu v'lodamu, that my enemies were like happy and rejoicing and being all shmendricky and stunky. Omar David says, David Fnei Kodesh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, Gadol v'yadul Fnecha, it is revealed and known before you, She'im ayu makarim b'sori, that if you would gash my flesh, there would be no blood left because I've been so embarrassed. All the blood has been drained from me. Not only that, my detractors, even if they're in complicated sugyos like negoyim and oihalos, omrim li, they still nonetheless pick themselves up from being engrossed in these sugyas, and they say, to make time to say, you know what, David, habal eshes ish, misasu b'meh. They look at each other and they say, hey, David, somebody who sleeps with an eshes ish, what's his punishment? And then they all look at each other and they say, ha 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 ha, and they laugh and make jokes. V'ani omer loim, and David HaMelech says, and I respond to them, misasu b'chenek. You know what? Habal eshes ish, the punishment is chenek, strangulation. But you know what? But at least he has a chelik ba'olam haba. Which is interesting, because we just said Abal eshes ish doesn't have a chelik in olam haba. Maybe it's a suffix eshes ish. I don't know. That's an interesting kasha. How could he have a chelik in olam haba if we just said taka, he goes to Gehenim and doesn't come out? Interesting. Maybe the Afka is like a suffix or whatever? Interesting. Anyways, but somebody who embarrasses the face of his friend in public like you are attempting to do to me, has no portion in the world to come. Marzusha bar Tuvia, Amar Rav, Amrila, Amar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Amar Rav Sherman Chasida, Amrila, Amar Rav Yechon, Amar Shimon ben Yechon, Noyach lo la'adam sheyapil atzma lekiv shano eish. It would be preferable for a fellow to throw himself into a fiery furnace rather than to embarrass the face of his friend in public. Minol and Hanulis mitomer from Tomer. Tichsiv he mutzeis vishalcha, right? Vishalcha el chamia, that they were taking out Tomer to burn her at the stake, And she didn't say, hey, I became pregnant from Judah. Rather, she just said, look, whoever is the owner of these items, it is from him that I became pregnant. And she kind of left it up to Judah to decide if he wanted to admit it, but she wasn't going to embarrass him. Instead, she was going to be burnt at the stake. What does it say? Chinana. Really? What's this? Chanina? Alright. Chanina breder of Idi, what does it mean, don't tonu a fellow to his friend? That don't speak not nicely to other Yidden. Rav says, a fellow needs to be very careful not to insult his wife, because her tears are frequent, because she cries easily. Well, that means that she's very sensitive, and that you have to be that there's a real risk of ona'ah over there. Amar Blazer says, from the time that the Holy Temple was destroyed, Nin Alu Shari Tefillah, the gates of prayer have been locked. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Gam Kezak Ba'ashaveh Sosam Tefilasi. Sosam Tefilasi, right? Yeah. That even when I call out and I pray, my prayers have been closed, have been locked up. Pisha Shari Tefillah Ninalu Shari Dmos Lo Ninalu. But even though the gates of tefillah, of prayer, have been locked, the gates of tears have not been locked. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Shima, right? Yeah. Shima tefillasi Hashem v'shavasi azino el dim'osi al techerash. God, listen to my prayer. Do not turn away my tears. V'omer Rav says, Rav kol ha'olech ba'atzas ishto nofel b'gehenim. Somebody who goes by the advice of his wife will end up in hell. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Rak lo hayek Achav v'gomer. There was nobody like King Achav who listened to the advice of his wife Izebel. Amr Papa says, Papa Labai v'Amr Inshe Itzach Gotza Gochin v'Tilcha Shlo. For 1 second. But what about this statement that the people say, which is punkt fakert, the exact opposite, that if your wife is very short, well, bend down to hear what she has to say, or to speak to her, but communicate with your wife, because that is going to be very important. And even if it means you have to bend down in order to listen to her, do that. Lokash, it's no problem. It depends. If it's general matters, don't listen to her. If it's things related to that to the household, listen to her. Alternatively, if it's related to your religious practice, don't listen. But anything else, listen. Rav Chizda says, now already we are what's the word? Oh wow, yeah. This I think my brain might be okay, because this is like such a normal daf, right? I'm like trying to figure out a word. My brain is not mush. You can just kind of read the daf. It's kind of nice and pleasant. All those other dafs are crazy. Now we are. What's it called when you like start like going from like one thing to the next? A transition. That is what we're doing. Now we're kind of slowly transitioning into the world famous story of Toner Shalachnai. Rav Chizda says, Rav Chizda kol ashayrim ninolim chutz mishari onoya, that all of the gates are locked except for the gates of onah, when a person is sort of insulted. Shneimar, the Pasuk says, Hine Hashem nitzav al chomas onoch uviado onoch. I forget what this thing is. I don't remember. A plum? Something? I don't really know. It seems like some kind of like whip or a weapon or I don't really know what this thing is. But alright, this guy, God has some kind of thing. Amr Belaza kol nifra bidei shaliach. Everybody is punished, I guess, by way of a messenger. Chutz mi onah, the exception being onah. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, uviyado onoch, that God, I guess it was in the context of onah, and that God had this, I don't know, punishment utensil. Amar Abba says, there are three examples where the curtain in heaven is not closed before them. I don't know what that, like, God kind of keeps it open and punishes them or something. Ona v'gezel v'avodah zara. Ona, speaking not nicely to a person, insulting a person. V'gezel, and theft, v'avodah zara, and the getchkis. Ona d'chsiv v'yado anoch. Okay, ona from this pasuk about this utensil for punishment or whatever. Gezel d'chsiv. Gezel, it says chamos v'shod yishama ba al ponai tomid. All right, that if there is, it's like when people like steal and stuff, it's like always in front of me. And then Vigomer, it says in continuation, what does it say in the continuation of the pasuk? It says Zovchim bagagos umkachim ala levenim. You see, bad stuff, getchkes, and it's like alponai tomid. It's always in front of me. Amavuda says a fellow should always be careful to have tvue, to have grain in his house. Because fights emerge in a fellow's home on account of things related to a lack of grain. Shneimah, as the pasuk says, "Hasam gvulech shalom chelev chitim hasbiech." That there will be peace in your boundaries and your borders. And that's related to chelev chitim hasbiech, when there will be satiated with wheat. Papa says, Papa, I knew that this is what the people say. Kimishlam sari mikada, that when there's no more barley in the vessel, nakish vasi tigru bebesa. That's when the fights commence. V'amar chinina bar papa leolam. Oh, is that what it was? Chinina bar papa. Oh wait, what was I looking at before that I wasn't sure who's it? What name? Chinina Breda. Okay. A person should always be careful to have wheat in grain in his house. Shalom nikru yisod dalim that the Yidden are called paupers, I guess, because of an account of things related to grain. Shneimah, as the pasuk says, "Vayim zar Yisrael v'gomer." It was if the Yidden planted, that the Midianites came, and they were dalim, and it was related to this grain that they planted. A person should always be very careful to honor his wife. That blessing is found in the house of a fellow specifically on account of his wife. Shneimah, as the pasuk says, Avram hated bavura. That the Eibishter was was it Paro, Avimelech? Somebody was very good to Avram because of Sarah. One second. Yeah, okay, yeah, alright, fine. This is what Rava said to the people of Mechoza, make sure to honor your wives so that you will be wealthy. And now, the world-famous story of the Toner Shel Achnai. Which kid has not heard of this story? And finally, at 36 years old, I am learning it inside for the first time. Well, by this point, it's like the third time. Okay. It's not awesome. We learned over there in, I think, Kalim or something. Sorry, Mom. Kalim? Yeah, Kalim. Okay, if you have I guess a oven, and it was broken into pieces, but then you kind of reconstructed it and put like sand between the pieces. Rabbi Eliezer mitar. Rabbi Eliezer says it's tahor because it's still considered broken, so it's not a kli anymore. It's not a kli. The Chacham say no, it is tamei. I guess it's not considered broken. Okay, fine. Where's that from? V'zeu toner shel achnai. And this is the Toner Shel Achnai, my Achnai. Why is it called the oven of the snake, of the serpent? Amar Rav Yudah Amar Shmuel, Sheikifo Dvarim Ke'achnai Zo. v'tim'u, that they surrounded it from all angles with discussion, and ultimately they said it was impure, it was tameh. Now, Tana also Hayom Heishiv Rabbi Eliezer called Shuvis Sheba Olam. So Rabbi Eliezer had said that it was tahor. The Chacham had said it was tameh, and they asked him all sorts of kashas, and Rabbi Eliezer gave all sorts of answers to all sorts of questions, right? Tana also Hayom that day Heishiv Rabbi Eliezer called Shuvis Sheba Olam V'lo Kiblu Imenu. He answered with all of the responses in the world, and the rabbis would not hear it. Amar Loim, and Rabbi Eliezer said, Im halacha kimosi, that if the halacha is like me, that it's tahor, charuv ze yochiach. This carob tree should be the proof. Neka charuv mimikomo mea ama. And sure enough, the carob tree moved 100 amas away. Some say taka, it moved 400 amas away. If that, I mean, he says if the halacha is like me, this carob tree should go flying. It went flying. They said to him, we don't bring proofs from flying carobs. He said, if the halacha is like me, the stream of water will be a proof. And sure enough, the stream of water started flowing backwards. It's very impressive, but we don't bring proofs from backward flowing streams of water. He then said to them, if the halacha is like me, then the walls of the Beis HaMedrash should be my proof. He too kosle Beis HaMedrash lipol. And sure enough, the walls of the Beis HaMedrash started leaning and they were about to fall. Gor boy, Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Yoshua says, hey, walls, you stay out of it. Amar Loim, and Rabbi Yoshua says, if the Talmidei Chachamim are debating and arguing with one another with halacha, atem ativchem, you stay out of it, walls. Lo naflu, and then the walls did not fall down. Mipnei kvodo shel Rabbi Yoshua, out of a deference, out of honor for Rabbi Yoshua, v'lo zokfu, but they also didn't straighten back out. Mipnei kvodo shel Rabbi Eliezer, out of the honor of Rabbi Eliezer, v'adayin matin v'omdin, and to this very day they are still leaning just as they were. Rabbi Eliezer then said, you know what? How about this? Im halacha kimosi, if the halacha is like me, min hashamayim yochichu. Let God Himself be the proof. Yotzoso baskol ve'amra, ma'halacha meitza Rabbi Eliezer, sha'halacha kimoso b'chol makom. And sure enough, a baskol emanated from heaven and said, the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. The halacha is always like Rabbi Eliezer. Omad Rabbi Yoshua al Raglov, and Rabbi Yoshua said, still, I don't care. V'omar lo bashomayimi. The Torah is not in the heavens. Ma'lo bashomayimi, what does it mean it's not in the heavens? Omar Rabbi Yirmiyah, shekvar nidna Torah me'ar Sinai. The Torah was given from the heavens to the people, to the earth, on our Sinai. It's no longer in the Shamayim. It's no longer the domains of the heavens, the domains of the people. In Onu mashgichim bebaskol shekvar kosavta ba'ar Sinai b'Torah acher rab lahatos. We don't listen to baskols. I know that the baskol is coming from God. I know that God Himself is saying that Rabbi Eliezer is right, technically speaking, strictly speaking. But the Eibishter gave us a Torah. And we have to look at the Torah and use that to guide us and make decisions. And what it says in the Torah is acher rab lahatos. That the Torah tells us that regardless, we go based on the majority. That if the majority opinion is one thing, we go based on the majority. Because we have to have rules, as we're going to see later with Rabbi Gamliel. That we have to have rules, and the Torah itself says, look, I'm giving you the Torah, and once you receive the Torah, it's in your hands, and you know, it's now in your hands to interpret it, and to paskin halacha. And therefore, even though a voice emanated from heaven and said that Rabbi Eliezer is technically right, but in practice, if the majority opinion is not like him, the Torah says, go based on the majority opinion, don't go based on what's technically right. That's what the Eibishter wants. Rabbi Nosson found Elijah the prophet, and he says to him, Elijah, my Ovid kuchibirchu ba'ishaita, what was the Eibishter doing at that time? Amarle, and Elijah the prophet says, Kol chayich, he was smiling. V'omer nitzchuni bonai. My children have been victorious over me. My children have been victorious over me. Meaning, even though the Eibishter himself said, technically speaking, Rabbi Eliezer is right. But he concurred. He says, that's not what's important. What's important is that we have rules, we have principles, and one of them being Achirabim Lahatos, and that is what's right. That becomes what's right. Amru, they said also Ayom Eviu Kol Tyrus Shatir Rabbi Eliezer, that day they took all of the things that Rabbi Eliezer had passed that they were tahor, v'sarfum ba'esh, and they burnt them in fire. V'nimnu olav v'erchu, and they excommunicated him. V'amru, they said Miyelech v'odio, who's going to go and tell Rabbi Eliezer that he's been excommunicated? Omar loim, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, Ani elech, I will go and break the news to Rabbi Eliezer, Shemayelech Adam she'enu hagun, lest somebody who is not fit shall go, v'yodio, and inform him, v'nim samachriv kol olam kulo, and the whole world will be destroyed. Also, Rabbi Akiva, what did Rabbi Akiva do? Lova shchorim v'nesativ shchorim, he adorned himself in all black, v'yoshav lefonav brichuk arba amis, and he sat before Rabbi Eliezer at a distance of 4 amis. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer says to Rabbi Akiva, Akiva, mayom yomayim, why is this day different from all the other days? Amar lo, and Rabbi Akiva says, Rebbe, ki medumali shechaverim bedilim mimcha, it appears to me that your friends are separating themselves from you, i.e., you're excommunicated. Afukari begadov, Rabbi Eliezer then tore his garments, tore his clothing, v'chalatz minolav, and took off his shoes, v'nishmat, v'yoshav al gabi karka, and he sat on the floor, zolgu ein of demos, and he began to cry, laka ha'olam, and at that time the world was smitten, shlish bezesim, a third of the olives were destroyed, v'shlish bechitim, a third of the wheat was destroyed, v'shlish besorim, and a third of the barley, and some say that even the dough that was in the hands of a fella at the time went bad. Tana, Rabbi Eliezer Nisraf, and anything that Rabbi Eliezer looked at that day was just singed, scorched, burnt up. Ve'af, Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Gamliel was on a boat, he was traveling on a boat. Omar Olav Nachshol Litavo, and the sea was going to sink the boat. Omar Rabbi Gamliel says, "Wow, this must surely be because of what's happening with Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus." Omar al Raglov, and Rabbi Gamliel got up and he says, "You know what?" He says, "But I understand that what happened with Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus is extremely serious. But you know what's also extremely serious? He says, Master of the world, it is revealed and known before you. I did not do this, excommunicate Rabbi Eliezer for my honor, nor for the honor of my family, of my household. I did it for your honor, Eibishter, Shelo Yarbu Machlokes be Yisrael, so that there should not be Machlokes, argument in Israel. We can't have a scenario where the Chachomim are saying that this is the halacha, and one person is saying that it's not the halacha, and bring all sorts of proofs, even from God Himself. But that would basically tear up the fabric of society. If we have a society that we can't rely upon our bezdins because maybe they're wrong, that would be a very, very slippery slope. And therefore, even though it's the great Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, and the halacha is always a great Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, and he was right. Look at all those miracles that happened that proved that he was right. But he was wrong because we go after the majority, and that is non-negotiable. Wow. At that time, the sea chilled out. Now, listen to this. The next chapter of this story. Ima Shalom, Tivisu Rabbi Eliezer, Achte Rabbi Gamliel Avoy. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer were brother-in-law. Rabbi Gamliel's sister Ima Shalom was married to Rabbi Eliezer. Me'ahu Ma'aseh ve'elach, and from that day on, Lo hava shavko le Eliezer le maple al ape. She would not allow Rabbi Eliezer to say tachanun. She would not allow Rabbi Eliezer to say tachanun. Wait 1 second. Okay. 1 second. Okay. She would not allow Rabbi Eliezer to say tachanun. I think I remember hearing this when I was like young. I think it meant like she would like interrupt him before saying tachanun. At least that's one opinion. Anyways, because she knew the power of tachanun, that if Rabbi Eliezer would say tachanun, Rabbi Gamliel, who excommunicated him, would die. That's how powerful, right? And as we said, right? We said this is why it was a transition before when we said, right? Kol hasharim ninolim chutz mishari ono, meaning. Somebody who feels that he's been wronged and insulted by other people, those gates are open. And she knew that if he would say tachanun, her brother's life was in jeopardy. So Ahu Yoma, then a certain day, it was Rosh Chodesh ve'ichlaf la bein mali l'chaser, but she got confused. Meaning she thought it was Rosh Chodesh and that there was no tachanun, so she didn't interrupt Rabbi Eliezer, but she made a mistake and it actually was not Rosh Chodesh and there was tachanun. Ikidam, those who say also Anya v'koya above, that a poor fellow came to the door, afikole rifta, and she brought out bread for this poor fellow, and she missed when Rabbi Eliezer was saying tachanun, ashkichose dunafal anpe, and sure enough she found that Rabbi Eliezer was saying tachanun. Amrle, and she says kum kotlis la'achi, wait, stop, you're going to kill my brother. And sure enough, adohachi nofak shipura mi beis Rabbi Gamliel dishachiv. And sure enough, an announcement came from the household of Rabbi Gamliel that Rabbi Gamliel had died. Omar lo, Rabbi Eliezer says to his wife, Mino yodat, how did you know that if I said tachanun, your brother was going to die? Omar, she said to him, Kach mikublani mi beis avi abba kol hashayim ninolim chutz mishari ono. I knew because all of the gates are locked except for the gate of ono, of somebody who has been wronged. And therefore I knew that if you would say tachanun, my brother's life was in jeopardy. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hama'anes hager, a person who's ma'ana, a proselyte over b'shlosha lavin, he violates 3 negative commandments. V'alochat, so somebody who pressures him like to pay back money, over b'shnayim, violates 2 lavin. Mai shno me'ane, d'chsive shlosha lavin. Right? Why are we saying that by we said somebody who's me'ane, a proselyte, he violates 3 lavin. V'ger, because it's 3 psukim. V'ger lo sone, v'ger v'chiyogur itcha ger ba'atzchem lo sonu oso, v'lo sonu ishes amito, v'ger b'chlal amito. Right, and it says lo sonu ishes amito, and a proselyte is one of your fellows. Lo chatzonam mishlosha, but by pressuring him, there's also 3 psukim. Ksive v'lo silchatzenu, v'ger lo silchatz, v'lo sia lo kinosha, v'ger b'chlal hu. And a proselyte would be included. So elo echad zev shlosha. In both scenarios, whether you are ona'ah him or whether you pressure him, I think like to pay back money. Yeah, you can violate 3 lavs. Tani Rabbi Eliezer Agado Omer says Rabbi Eliezer Agado Pnei Ma'izira Torah B'Lamed Vav Mekomis. How come the Torah warns in 36 places? V'Amrei La B'Mem Vav Mekomis. Some say 46 places. Beger, regarding a proselyte Pnei Shesura Ra, because I don't know, I guess he has negative tendencies from before he proselyted. Ma'idich Siv, what does the pasuk mean? Veger lo sone v'lo silchatzenu ki ger mayisin beretz Mitzrayim. Do not be mean to a proselyte, because after all, you were gerim in Eretz Mitzrayim. Reb Nosson Omer mum shebecha al tomer lechavercha. A blemish that your own blemish you should not highlight to your friend. Don't be hypocritical. This is what the people say. If a person in somebody's family was hanged, well then you shouldn't say to somebody else, hey, why don't you hang this fish or something like that. Meaning, if hanging is a thing in your family, then just avoid the whole sugya of hanging. Okay. That was daf Nuntes Masechta BavaMetzia. That was a gewaltige daf. My brain is not mush. Even though there's a second daf I'm recording today, it is not mush. So I think that's a good sign. I think it is the Gemara that makes my brain mushy, not my brain being inherently mushy. I think that that's a good thing, promising. But wow, talked about all about Onah's Devarim today, and the world famous Gemara of Tanu Shalachnai, Terbeliezer Lo Bashamayimi. Oh my, that was exciting stuff. We also saw a bunch of other very, very famous Gemaras, like, better to throw yourself into a fire furnace than to embarrass somebody, and right, that all the gates are locked except for the gates of tears and the gates of Onah. What a daf. Peace out.